My name is Jackson, aka the Big Unit. Some of you know me as the guitar repair guy. Some of you know me as the lead singer, guitarist, and songwriter for the heavy metal band Shatterbone. Some of you know me as an electrical educator. Some of you know me as the guy with the crazy guitar collection. Some of you know me as a die-hard Raiders fan. For years I have worked on, collected, played, and spent all my free time around guitars. But now I am going to do something I have never attempted before. I'm going to build a guitar. Okay, so this bridge was causing me a little bit of an issue. Generally with like a flat top guitar and a flat, you know, like a Telecaster where everything's flat and straight in line, you shouldn't need a neck angle, but I did have a little bit of a neck angle because of the height of this bridge. So in an effort to eradicate that problem, I ended up sanding that shim at just a little bit of an angle. So that took care of that. So that's solved. So next, and I have my cavity cover finished now. So that's ready to go. I have the electronics in place. I have a silver switch tip on order. Or chrome switch tip. I mean, I got everything else chrome. I kind of want the switch tip chrome too. But I don't have one on hand. I mean, I do, but they're all already on other guitars. So I don't really want to go cannibalizing other guitars. So next, I think we're going to put the tuning pegs on. I just want to get that done so then I can get string pull and figure out where my pickups properly align. I don't want to just guess, because 85% of the time I guess wrong on a 50-50 chance. I don't know how that works, but so I'm going with Kluson tuners this time. Normally I like Schaller. I'm a big fan of Schaller, but I got a deal on these Kluson locking tuners that I was too good to pass up. So I'm going this route this time.
Maybe, is there a way you can turn that around so I can get a better view?
Oh sure, make me do everything bass-ackwards here.
Well,
There we go.
I can move the camera.
No, I'm fine. Okay. And I think I'm going to have to pop those in. I mean, they're not, it's not loose enough that it's going to be a serious problem, but there we go. Excuse me, not tight enough that it's going to be a serious problem. I want to make sure that I just get them banged in there good, so there we go. Just get them good and seated. Otto? What are you doing? Hi, Casper. Do you need to be on TV? No. Everybody just wants to come hang out in Dad's workroom, huh? Hey, Link.
Casper, can you sit down?
Sit. Sit. Good boy. Well, I'm not screwing with it on camera. And my only option there is going to be to drill it out and use a bigger screw now.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking garbage screws. But it is tight anyway. Alright. Well. That looks pretty nice, huh?
Yeah. Very nice.
It seems like the further I go into this, the fewer things that go smoothly. I don't know. Anyway. Well, I gotta say that I've never used Clusen tuning pegs before on one of my own builds. And not super impressed with the quality of their screws. So I don't know if I'll be using them again. That's a little bit frustrating, having a little tiny screw like that break off in the guitar. It's one thing if it's a 3/8 inch bolt, drilling it using a bolt extractor is not such a big deal. When it's a screw that you almost need a magnifying glass to see, definitely not going to be as easy to drill out. I'm going to end up wallering that thing out to some significantly larger size, which may or may not be an issue. Anyway, onward. Tell you what, folks, these boxes that most pickup models show up in, these are fantastic for bits and pieces and parts and components, and they also work great for like work table trays when you're tearing down a guitar to work on it or something like that, so you don't lose all the little screws and stuff like that while you're working on that guitar. So anyway, on to the strings. My giant stash of strings here. No, we don't need 7 string. There we go. Now, I'm a big guy, in case you hadn't caught on by now. But anyway, I like heavy strings. So I play 11s for my playing. I usually use Ernie Ball Power Slinkies, the purple 11s.
What are you doing?
I am doing a bend trick.
Oh yeah? You're gonna plane your pencil?
I am going to plane my pencil.
Why? It's already got a tip.
Not the tip. Okay. Now, you can see that that is planed down like that.
Okay.
And what you do, once you have your nut properly seated, is you set this on top of your frets. Oh, trying to do this, or you can still see what the heck I'm doing here. You set it on top of your frets, like that, and then draw the line on your nut, and that tells you how far down you can cut your nut slots without banging into the rest of your frets.
Oh.
Otherwise, it'll start to bottom out. Nobody wants that, because then you get buzz.
Lightyear?
No. The nut files. And no, that's not a story. It's tales of the people I hung out with in high school. Alright. I'm not sure what the problem is. I'm sure it's user error, but I have no idea. I did exactly what the thing says, and I am not figuring out string spacing with that ruler. So I'm copying one of my Les Pauls, which lines up pretty much exactly with the nut that I have. I mean, same width, so I'm not going to cut them all the way down. I'm going to just get slots started so I have an idea of exactly where the string's got to be sitting, and then I can put them individually on and file each one to depth as needed. Okay. So the goal here is to get the string over the pole as much as possible. If I get the two outside ones lined up, the middle ones should be in pretty good shape. I also want to make sure it doesn't looks pretty good with the edges of the fretboard, and that I'm not leaving any of the cavity open. All right.
So the only reason you put the two outside strings on is to make sure the pickups are lined up right?
For right now, yep.
Huh. What kind of strings are they?
Ernie Ball nickel wound power slinkies. Alright.
Pretty.
Yeah. I'm not mad about it. Okay. So, now that's done. Let's go back to getting the strings on it and getting the nut slots properly filed.
So what are you doing now?
Get the jack plate on. I suppose I shouldn't put that away yet. I'm gonna need it again. Okay, you didn't miss much. Off camera, I just quick soldered the sleeve ground and the hot tip wires to the jack. And I quick shielded the cavity again, which is currently drying.
You need a green screw.
This isn't real electrical. I guess I shouldn't say it that way. That sounds derogatory. This isn't power electrical. Let's say it that way. And I know that. And I am aware that that doesn't require a color code and low volt and stuff like that. But I mean, low volt control does, but this does not. Low volt signal. But I'm still a critter of habit, so I still have a tendency to use the green screw for, or the green wire for ground, and but yeah, no, green screw's not necessary.
I didn't know.
I know. That's all right.
So you don't need any other color wire?
Oh yeah, I'll probably. I mean, when you get into the pickups and stuff, I mean, they got 5 wires in there. You got your green, your red, your white, your black, and your bare. And those are different for everybody. Just in case you're not aware out there, those are different for everybody. So don't do a color for color swap from like a Seymour Duncan to a non-branded pickup, or a DiMarzio pickup, or a Bill Lawrence pickup, or whatever, because not everybody uses the same color code. You do that kind of stuff and it'll really, really screw up your wiring job real fast. You know what?
What?
This This will work just fine if I turn the torque down. I am now getting the string trees in place here before I proceed with any further setup, and maybe if everything goes smoothly, I can proceed on to bit of soldering tonight yet. Let's see what happens. Oh, that one's got a post. Okay. This is what happens when you take a Gibson guy and try and get him to do Fender stuff.
What are you doing now?
I'm going to drill for the string trees and put them in. Oh, that's cute. It walked on me.
Link, stop being a bully.
My 10-pound cat is picking on my 80-pound golden retriever. That's hilarious, isn't it? Okay. I guess I could start setting it up, but to be completely honest with y'all, I'd rather solder. Which some of you probably think sounds absolutely insane. But I, unlike most other people, enjoy wiring guitars. So, that's what we're doing next. Honestly, this is what I do most. I usually have a fair amount of people that will call me up asking me to work on their guitars, wire them and stuff like that. So this is kind of where I'm a little more at home. Where a lot of people are, you know, at home doing the woodworking side of things, and then when they get to this part, they shudder. This is the part that I like to do more.
With this, right?
See my Batman chair? It's my Batman chair. Batman.
Anyway, sorry. I like my Batman chair.
It's comfortable.
It's nice. Typical electrician's practice. You know, when you have black cable or something like that, in order to color code to keep track of what you got, I always put a piece of blue around the bridge pickup cable. Blue, bridge, B, right? Because I mean, right now it's clearly obvious. This is the bridge pickup. Because one has a lot less distance to travel, so obviously that's the bridge, but I'm not going to keep all that. I don't want all that cluttering up my controls cavity here. So when I nip that down, it's the same length as the other one, and all of a sudden now it's like, oh, which one's which? So
Trying to figure out what the best angle this is going to be.
I don't know if there's going to be one, honestly. Maybe over here behind me, right over my shoulder.
That's good.
Okay, so first, since I am not doing any fun stuff like coil splitting or reverse phase or coil tapping or any of those other fun little tricks and things that you can do with different wiring methods. Since I'm going basic on this one, I want to make sure that I have the end of the north coil and the end and the beginning of the south coil soldered together, so it makes it one continuous humbucker instead of a split two coils of some sort. So now, a good practice when soldering, you get a little solder on the tip of your iron, you heat the wire and then let the wire wick the solder. If you just drip hot solder over a cold wire, you can get solder bridges, cold flow, things like that. And essentially what happens is you don't get a good clean connection. And it'll make all kinds of terrible, awful, horrible, no good situations for you. So this is the best way to go about doing it.
Can you put heat shrink on?
Yeah, I try to avoid electrical tape as much as possible when doing guitars. Just because when you're dealing with such tiny wire, it's really hard to get electrical tape to do what you want it to. It has a tendency to not want to stay stuck to such a small conductor. It has a tendency to just make a big ugly gob in your control cavity. So I typically just get the really tiny heat shrink. Make sure it ain't sticking out the end. And put a little heat shrink on it. Now, some people ask why I use the barrel of my soldering iron to shrink heat shrink. And that's because heat shrink can have residue that it will leave. You can see there it leaves like a little bit of a black residue on there. That'll coat your soldering iron tip and your solder won't want to stay on your tip. Then you got to sit there and take it to sandpaper and clean the tip off, and it's just a pain in the ass. So this this method prevents that. Use the barrel of your soldering iron. All right. Next, grounds. Can you grab me that little, or the box of Dremel attachments? There's another little trick I'm gonna show you here, and now this is not mandatory that you do this, okay? This is just a trick that I use. Oh, hey, I don't need it. I got the tip on here already. your pots. A lot of times they will coat the pots, the back of your potentiometers, they'll coat them with anti-corrosive of some kind. And it can suck trying to get solder to flow onto the pot, back of the pot. So I like to just take one of the little abrasive Dremel tips and just beat it up a little bit where you intend to solder to the pot. You don't have to do an intense amount of buggering up of the pot or anything like that. Just a little bit of it. But just get a clean spot where you're going to have any solder attachments. You get a much cleaner connection that way. Again, heat what you're trying to get solder to flow onto. So you get a little solder on the tip of your iron and hold it in place for a little bit. There you go. Now, another tip of mine, I always use rosin core solder if I can help it. I like leaded solder. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, lead's bad. They're not kidding. Don't lick your fingers while you're doing this and you'll be fine. But leaded solder seems to always get a better bond than lead-free solder. So I usually go with leaded solder. Now again, your green and your bare here are part of your shields and your grounds. We're going to want all that connected together at a ground point. One more thing here. When you do your switch, in order to find out if forward is backward or backward is forward or whatever, okay. Or up is down or down is up. You flip your switch to that direction, and on your switch you've got your left pole, your right pole, and your union. Also, it's not a dumb idea to get a soldering iron that actually has a temperature control. Right now I'm just getting all my wires tinned, because if you tackle most of that right at the onset, it makes your life a heck of a lot easier going forward. At least I find. Your mileage may vary. Now I will have videos coming up here where I will break down the the majesty and miracle and limitations of capacitors, what capacitors do, why they do it, all that kind of stuff. So if you're subscribed, you'll know when that comes. And it'll basically, what your capacitor does is it filters high end. Okay, the signal. It filters the high signal. So when you have a capacitor in your tone, what happens is it's cutting some of the high end. And that's great. It gives you, the ability to get warmer sounds out of your guitar and things like that. But if you have a very small capacitor, it's going to tend to not have as much in the way of dark depth, warmth, low end, muddiness, however you want to refer to it. The smaller the capacitor, the less your tonal depth will be, if we put it that way. If you like, really muddy, dark, down, low end with your tone knob, you roll that tone knob back and all of a sudden it, sounds like corrosion to conformity with the bass turned up on your stereo. Okay, then what you're essentially running into is you want a very, very large capacitor. You want something that's got like 440 picofarads or 0.44 microfarads. If you want something that's not quite as grungy and dark and gritty and dirty and dark sounding, go with something that's a little closer to like 220 picofarads or 0.22 microfarads.
What's a picofarad?
It's a fraction of a farad. A really, 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 really small fraction of a farad.
Okay, first of all, what's a farad?
It's what capacitance is measured in. Another little trick I like to do when I'm screwing around with bonding jumpers and stuff like that, and I could have done it from the switch or from the jack. I don't like doing it from the jack, and the reason I don't like doing it from the jack is because a lot of times you end up having to replace jacks. If you get a good set of pots and you take good care of them, you don't have to replace pots nearly as often. But essentially, what we got going on here is I'm going to have a jumper that'll have to go, a bonding jumper that'll have to go from my switch to one potentiometer to the other potentiometer. So that bonding jumper needs to connect all three, and I can do it as 3 separate wires if I want to. I mean, there's nothing that says I can't. I just like doing it this way because then I get it all in one wire. It's a little bit cleaner. It's a little easier to make your connections. I just think it looks a little nicer. So, get my helping hands out here. So now, I have a jumper that'll go from the switch to the first pot to the second pot, and all in one wire. Just a little bit cleaner process here. So all right, get that bonding jumper in place. This goes from the union point on the switch to one side of the potentiometer, the volume potentiometer, and then jumpers over to the tone as well. Now, I've always wanted to try this, and I specifically designed this when I laid these in here. And I'm sure some people, as you were looking at this, were thinking to yourself, good God, he's got that awfully tight in there. And you wouldn't be wrong.
So what did you just do?
Instead of running a jumper wire, I'm just going to try and solder those two posts together with this wire in there. And then I don't have to have a frickin' jumper wire in there. Efficiency, people.
Isn't that technically still a jumper wire?
Yes. Except now it's a union. It's not just a wire running in between it. A little piece of wire I had to cut and try and fashion in between it. It's just connected all in one spot. Makes my life easier.
That's good.
I like easier.
Yes.
Okay, so I got my jumper to my shield. I got my bridge. I got the ground jumper from switch to pot. I have the sleeve. I have the tip. Looks like all that's left are these grounds and the switch. Functional guitar.
Yay!
Now I just have a lot of setup to do. A couple pieces to put on it yet.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Alex.
I think that about covers it.
Good job.
It's set up, it plays, it tunes. I do need to do the intonation on it yet, but I'm not going to do that on camera. Okay, so what have I learned? It's never going to go smoothly. However, I didn't experience anything that I couldn't overcome. And I'm sure lessons learned the hard way are lessons you don't forget. So, you know, going forward, I'm sure there's going to be things that I recall from the last build that I will make a mental note to avoid in the next one. Other lessons learned. Make sure that the router depth stop is locked tight before you try to do any routing. That's definitely a good one to remember. You can never do enough sanding. I sanded and sanded and sanded and sanded some more, and yet I can still see some scratches in here from the Shinto rasp. Now, they don't feel bad, but you can still see them. You couldn't see them until I put stain on it, but you can see them now. Other things, white glue before it dries with a wet cloth. I did rub glue into the end grain in a couple of spots here, and I never did get it completely out. Grain filler. I really should have used grain filler right here and right here. In the end, is it a huge problem? Not really, but in retrospect, I wish I would have. It just would have looked a little bit cleaner. But don't get disgruntled. Everybody runs into setbacks. I've watched guys who've been doing it a lot longer than me during this trip, and they all experienced the same kinds of headaches that I did, just in different avenues. You know, maybe they didn't have the router depth stop problem, but you know, they had things happen that caused them to cuss and scream and things like that. The goal is to keep going, persevere. You can never do too much, I think is a good rule of thumb here, okay? You can always do a little bit more than you have. You can always go one extra step, do a little more sanding, spend a little more time in that one spot. I mean, you can make this process as lengthy or as brief as you want it to be. Yeah, the next project is going to be a workbench so I can proceed with more guitar builds. I have the hardware already. I have a blueprint for a torsion box workbench. And that will be the next project. And after that, I'm starting a Les Paul. Imagine that, me and a Les Paul. So, I guess, folks, that about sums it up for this one. So, thank you for joining me on this journey, and hopefully you stick with me for the future ones too. Yeah, if not, thanks for being here while you were, and I guess, you know, the usual click, like, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again. This has been my Great Guitar Build-Off build. And I'll still have the audio coming up here, but this will probably be the rest of the banter for me. So, thanks a lot. Click, like, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again. All right, well, the first of hopefully many big unit guitars. So that's the logo I ended up going with. So hopefully it's not too ridiculous. If I make it big and famous someday, everybody will ask for bug guitars. But anyway, okay, so a couple things here. For those of you who are just, you know, watching the final quick edit or whatever, or just wanted to see the highlight reel here at the end. This started out as a Crimson kit guitar. It's a swamp ash body with a maple neck, ebony fretboard, nickel frets, Kluson tuners. I have CTS pots, Switchcraft switch. The bridge pickup is a Seymour Duncan JB, chrome cover. The neck pickup is a Seymour Duncan Jazz with chrome cover. The bridge is a Schaller roller bridge. Ernie Ball Power Slinky 11 through 40, 46? 11 through 46, I think, 48, something like that. It's got a really thick carved neck. I would say the closest factory thing you would find similar to that would be a Deep C, like an old Fender Deep C. Bone nut. I have a .022 microfarad or a 22 picofarad capacitor for the tone, for those of you who care for that kind of thing. The cover cavity cover plate I made out of oak. But yeah, and for the audio demo here, I'm using my Kemper Profiler through a Krankenstein cabinet. And the models that I'm going to be using, or I guess the profiles, it's not a modeler, it's a profiler. Anyway, the profiles I'm using, the clean channel is a Fender Twin reverb, and the dirty channel is a Krankenstein profile. So give you a couple of quick demo pieces here before I actually play it a little bit, you know. The clean on the bridge pickup, tone rolled completely wide open, so there's no tone on it really. Okay, with the tone rolled all the way back. position with tone off pretty much. Neck position, the tone full. Middle position, tone open. Middle position, tone full. Okay, I'm not a pretty guitar player if you haven't caught on to that yet. I'm not a pretty guitar player, but I'm not a pretty guitar player either.
I think you're pretty handsome.
Okay. Anyway, the distortion is kind of, you know, my go-to. Shatterbone, we're not contemporary Christian, right? So, this is bridge, tone completely open. You know, I don't have tone full, tone's completely open. So. Okay, so here we go. Let's give it a whirl here. jazz pickup. It's nice. I mean, it's got a nice buttery sound to it in the distortion. Putting it in the middle position. It's in the bridge position. We've got the JB. I personally am a big fan of the Duncan Distortion. I like the Duncan Distortion a lot, but the JB seems far more versatile to me. You know, doing distortion, but then taking it over to clean too. JB's got a nice clean to it too, so. And then not going full blown on the tone, but rolling it back about halfway. It doesn't get too muddy cruddy. And then in the middle position, clean is really nice too. It's got a nice sound to it. I really like the way it turned out. I'm not a big neck pickup player, but it's a nice little sound there. I like it. So anyway, sorry, the dogs are excited about something. So anyway, yeah, it's definitely not going to be one that I'll hang on the wall of shame, so that's a good sign. Things I would probably do differently next time. Several. Number one, absolutely positively beyond all else and all human reason make absolutely sure the router depth stop is locked before I begin routing. Yes, I got to learn some new techniques and tricks that I hadn't even been planning on learning because of that, but yeah, you know, it worked out in the end, but that's definitely a disaster I don't want to deal with every time going forward. So I'm probably going to try and watch that next time a lot more closely than I did this time. As Ben always says, measure, measure, cut. Yeah, measure, measure, drill too while you're at it. Make sure that you're not going through the back where you didn't intend to. That's a big one to remember too. I think with the stain, I really should have read it closer. I should have read it closer because, yeah, the sky blue stain is water-based, while the royal blue and denim blue are oil-based. They don't like to play well together. So it did end up a little bit streaky in the end because of that. The water base kind of, made it look a little bit. I mean, it still looks nice. I dig it. I mean, it was if it was going to be a mistake, it was an all right mistake to have because it didn't hurt the look of the guitar any. But next time, I'm probably going to forego the whole attempt to do a lighter stain over top for a third pass and just go with, two. I also didn't take the time to shape the sharp little corners on the nut. Probably should have done that. It's a little sharp. That I probably will handle later on off camera. But I mean, overall, I don't have any dead spots anywhere, So I don't have anywhere where it's fretting out or anything like that. So I guess I did the fret leveling right. Anyway.
It's a learning experience.
You bet. So with that, thank you for joining my journey. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough to keep doing it. So thanks again for being part of it. And yeah, going forward, and hope you stick with me. And it wasn't just because I was doing it for GGBO that you watched. Hopefully at least a few of you find me entertaining.
I do.
All right. So with that, I guess that is the conclusion of my GGBO submission for 2022. So long and thanks for all the fish. Okay? Take care and we'll see you next time.